Hey guys,
there we go.
Welcome to episode 79 of CMD Towers, Brews, and Builds. I'm Mr. Karma number 5, and my fellow host may come to the bitter revelation that he will be a NASCAR fan once he relocates to his new abode, Big Tuck.
You're like the fourth person who's brought that up. Let me go on record. I think NASCAR is abhorrent. I think it's an extremely boring sport. And here's the thing where it's like, I don't ever, well, first things first here. And hello, cats and kittens. I don't really have any bits set for this one yet. But like, look, if I ever hear this happen ever again, where it's like, I love NASCAR and I think it's really exciting to see someone drive around in a circle for 4 hours and get blackout drunk, then I'm gonna immediately go to them and be like, what do you think about gas prices? Oh, they're way too high. Yeah, no wonder when you're just burning gas and ruining cars. It's such a stupid sport, right? And oh my God, I had this out with somebody. The other thing too is like, I understand that it's a professional sport, right? But like, you're wasting resources that are not infinite. Like, hypothetically, in the trajectory of humankind that we are going on with, there is a potential of infinite basketball players, right? And you're only using resources that are coming out of your body and going into your body, right? But basketball, in that sense, is a very tight loop.
The argument could be made that resources are wasted with their airfare because they have to travel 41 games a year, all the fans, all the wasted merchandise. I mean, okay. Where does it end?
All right,
where does it end?
So wait. So this makes me, I'm even more into that side of the conversation because it continues along my trend that sports are a bunch of bullshit and they're the spawn of evil and capitalism and all things that are bad in America. There, I said it. Wait, because I'm brave. I'm brave, Mr. Combo. I'm not scared. We're not being paid off by big sports.
But I would also like to point out that Tuck played sports in high school, played sports in college, and played sports as an adult.
Correct, but I never got airfare paid for any of them or needed it. Well, anyway, now that my ire's up, I can feel my heart beating in my chest, and it could be the spicy food. How are you, sir? You're looking great. You got your festive sweater on for this 10-degree day that we had here.
Yeah, good.
Which feels like Florida comparative to the rest of the week.
I know, which is kind of crazy. So, as you guys will notice, Squee McGee is not on with us. We ended up having to record significantly earlier than we normally do to help accommodate me, because as of tomorrow, but it'll be a week from the past when you guys finally hear this, I have to wake up at 3 a.m. to catch a flight that boards at 5:30. So, we're doing a little early rigmarole here. And so we've gone from -6 to today's like 10 or 12.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I'll be in 70-degree weather, so I'll probably have a heat stroke.
I was gonna say, I think you're like, have you ever had what's it called? When I was living in Colorado, the temperature could go from like in the morning, it's like 10 degrees and snowing. And then by the time I was biking home, it was like 65 and sunny. And every single person in my grad school got sick all at the same time in 1 week.
Oh, really?
Because the temperature change was so rapid. So make sure you keep hydrated. And no margaritas and frozen pina coladas do not count.
Those do not count. I went to the liquor store today, so FYI for the collective.
Why? You go to a resort.
Get this. They do not serve booze now on planes because of COVID.
Oh, so you just got to make a little to-go bottle?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Me and my fiance, we got like 10 different mini bottles each. But the kicker, and this is a little Mr. Combo tools of the trade. And by the trade, I mean being a drunk. What you have to do is you have to get through security. You do the tiny bottles, no problem there. But then you got to go to one of the concession stands inside the airport once you're through security, buy a soda, buy a juice, you drink a little bit.
Get a Sprite, yeah.
You mix it then because you cannot mix it on the plane. It's against FAA regulations. They have to serve the alcohol.
Okay.
But if you already go in with a Coke or a Sprite, no harm, no foul.
See, I didn't know that, and my mom does the same gimmick, but evidently she doesn't know that either, because I've seen her just open up. She, like, there's weird things that happen with my mom. Like, there's one time where she was like, we were at my house, it was like right here when I first moved in. They turned, and she was like, hey, and I turned around, and she just had a disposable camera that, like, went off my face. So where'd you get that? She's like, I've had it on the whole time. So, like, I've seen her on a plane before. I just look over, and I see her order something, and she gets, like, a tomato juice, right? And then I just see her, like, rifle around, just come up with like one of those mini bottles and just pour it right in and make a Bloody Mary.
So, because we could talk about this for hours, which I think goes into that whole thing that Squee talked about. We could just sit here and bullshit and you guys could listen.
Yeah.
The thing that I could literally picture your mom doing is having one of those massive purses. She's on the plane, orders her tomato juice.
Yeah.
And then instead of pulling out a mini bottle of vodka, she pulls out a goddamn fifth. And you're like, Mom, how did you get that here? She's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. No, that's exciting. We're going to, for those who will be listening to this, we already got a great guest lined up. I just talked to him today for next week, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah, that's going to be great. And of course, guys, thanks for tuning into the episode. And with that Monolith commentary is Squee McGee at Rich Chaos Records.
You already buried the lead because you said he's not here.
Well, yeah, but he could just like randomly cut us off and then start talking.
Yeah, so that's true. We better make it as difficult as possible for him, like we have been doing this whole time.
But if you guys want more ways to support Squee's editing chances, which he probably has a better chance at winning the lottery than trying to edit over us and make it coherent, and all the content we put out, head over to our sponsor, level1gameshop.com. They sell everything you need from a tabletop gaming perspective. Plus, they're the ones that hook you up with those monthly giveaways. So please go do some orders with them, because supporting them supports us, which supports you. It's just circles. It's like what they say, and I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. It's a circle. It's just
don't you bring that on this podcast. That's a great way to get canceled.
Cancel culture.
How dare you?
So if you guys would actually like to put dollars in our pockets, it would be appreciative to go to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMDTower. We have 4 different pledge levels, and the rewards vary from just $1 a month, getting into the Discord, getting into deck therapy, and we will have that new segment that debuted earlier in the week, the Council of the Unbanned, which will be its own channel to where you guys can go in and vote whether or not cards should be unbanned or stay on the ban list. All the way up to $25 a month, where you do get all of the swag that we offer. So whenever we come out with new swag, you get it. You get our old swag. You just get all the stuff.
And just to put a cherry on top of that, I make it my pledge to kiss every individual item that we send out from here on in. So if you need to clone me, that's a surefire way, government. Listen, I know you're hearing this.
But if you guys can't help from a monthly perspective, maybe you see on Mr. Bever's Twitch channel or MTG Lexicon or in the aforementioned CMD Tower Twitch channel that hopefully one day will actually be a thing. You can head over to our store, cmdtower.com/merch. You can order any of the swag that our patrons have access to. Please buy it. It is consuming my basement. It is kind of like the Gremlins. Like, I got it wet after midnight and now they won't stop throwing.
Someone accidentally spilled the beer on it last time we were over there at the Super Bowl party.
Oh, that was a cry fest. Anyways, if you guys actually can't help us financially either way, just share the content you're watching and listening to, because every little bit of interaction from the collective does help. And of course, big shout out to Pink Royal for the music provided at the beginning and the end, and our video editor at t.coates on Twitter. He's the one that puts together these awesome YouTube videos for you, puts a lot of hard work into it, and he's even putting in the overtime to help us out with me being out Fridays, so we can have the content early so you guys get it rise and shine on Friday morning. So Brews and Bills is our deck tech series. Since we conquered the path to 32, we have moved on to the endless themes that EDH can bring us. Each month will be a new theme, and we correlate how these decks are constructed similar to how a beer is brewed. So we broke it down into 4 different categories. The first one's rampant setting your board state. That's grains.
And grains are the foundation of every beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts, usually in about a 60-40 ratio. This helps with the color, the taste, and most importantly, the alcohol content of the beer. Decks always need ways to grow, stabilize, and ramp in your bigger threats, and just look like a grain profile. They're usually a mix of staples and specialty cards.
And then the next is, how does your board interact with the rest of your opponents? That's called hops.
And hops give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal floral flavors that grow in a variety of strands and help distinguish subcategories like IPAs. Our hop choices help clear and interact with the board so your deck can do what it wants.
And then we have, how does your deck actually close out and win games? We call that yeast.
And yeast are living microorganisms that eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. It adds alcohol content like the 7.4% in this pale Doppelbock lager I'm currently enjoying, and the carbonation. How big's yours?
You're going to be real upset. I'm drinking a cranberry turbo shandy that's at 7%.
Whoa! we're getting wet. Without yeast, you're going to be drinking flat sugar water. And with yeast, you're still drinking flat sugar water if it's a shandy. And also without yeast, without yeast cards, your deck won't meet the goal of winning the game. I'm losing it.
Oh, God. And then we have shenanigans. This could be pet card synergies, alter the broods, which it's here, but it's not a spice. We got the spice package.
There was one in here that I am very proud of you for. Not every beer has them. The spices and other additives help separate a normal stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the pepper that turns a stout into jalapeno stout, or the addition of hops that turn an IPA into a double IPA. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does is where we generally talk about it.
And then we have the end of the episode. Just kidding. It's a bottle capping. These are going to be big textonized cuts and adds to the deck that are going to be under $5, under $50, and a no budget recommendation. The only restriction is no mana only lands, which honestly, this deck doesn't really need. Yeah,
I think you have one in here that I think pulls a lot of weight in the early game.
Sure.
But yeah, beyond that, I can't really think of any that's super exciting for it, right?
So without further ado, let's get brewing. So we're rounding out the commander is everything month as we finish with a mediocre Araumi of the Dead Tide deck that you guys have heard a lot about. I call it Araumi is really into composting. She's just really into it. She wants to take her trash, reuse it a little bit, and then it's gone forever.
And also it's exciting because you have yet another commander that you can get an altar with fish titties on it. So I mean that's really exciting too. Another Lady Merfolk.
I do love fish breasts. Why isn't that a thing? You can get chicken breasts. There's no fish breasts. Come on, that's just sexist.
I don't think. Yeah, because they have a fillet. I think it's because it's like a full section of muscle. But I mean, I've seen some sexy fish in my life, so they're just really getting the short. They're getting the long end of the pole on that one. Get it?
Long end of the fish stick.
Yo, yowza.
Well, Tuck, why don't you read off this sexy fish? What her CMC is and what she does.
This is what happens when Squee isn't here to rein us in. So Araumi of the Dead Tide is a legendary creature, merfolk, wizard, 1/4, an uncommon, coming fresh out of the gates out of Commander Legends is what that set was called, right?
Yeah, or I think it's called Commander Pringle.
No kidding. I mean, that feels like a year ago, and we just saw previews for the next one today.
Strixhaven, yeah.
Yeah, yikes. But anyways... I think this card is really cool because it took a brand new mechanic and gave it kind of wings. So it has an ability that tap exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have. Target creature card in your graveyard gains Encore until end of turn. The Encore cost is equal to its mana cost. So Encore, for those who don't know, which is most of us at this point, exile the creature card and pay its mana cost. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step, which I think is critical. Yep. And then you activate this only as a sorcery. So it's kind of a little bit like Myriad from the graveyard, but the thing I like about them is they stick around through the entire turn as well.
And they get sacrificed. I believe Myriad, they get exiled.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So here's the thing I kind of like about this. There's multiple things. First off, very interesting mechanic having Myriad from the graveyard, but I think they really did put some good thought into it to make sure this didn't end up broken. Because here's a few things that they did. A, you can only do it at sorcery speed. That's humongous. B, you have to exile the creature that you're doing the Encore with on top of exiling however many cards you need to for however many opponents. That's humongous as well, because you're limiting your resources and there's just really few and far between cards that can pull from exile outside of restarting the game. So
totally agree.
I think this is built fair. The only thing that I get it would make it too good, but I do wish you could point the tokens at one opponent two, I hate that you have to go one in each. I wish you could get a little bit more flexibility, but it would be kind of gross if you, I don't know, encored out like a gross Eldrazi and you're like, hey, all Annihilator 39 going at your face.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I like back to the point about the Encore too. I think we've talked a lot. One thing that's frustrating to me is they come out with a new mechanic and there's so little support for it, right? Yeah. So if this said something, I think this card would be infinitely worse if it said like whenever you Encore, blah blah blue happens, right?
Yeah.
Which is how like a lot of times they do that, right? With cycling or whatever the case may be.
Or that Jeskai flashback deck.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I think it's cool. I think the thoughts I had on it up front is I was kind of surprised
for like 4 months.
Yes, exactly. I played it at least once in the boxing league. What a failure that was. And I so pre-cast I was like, so did you like swap out any cards? Because I'm seeing a lot of ones in here from Commander's Legends. But yeah, I think so. I think the kind of the trick with the commander, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Kaza, the Royal Chaser.
Oh, yeah.
Because it kind of does everything that those colors want, right? Of mill,
sure.
Blue and black creatures have piles of good ETB effects, but it's maybe like a little slower or maybe like a little more fair than those other ones, especially with the exiling the cards. And I think that the only real thing that jumped out at me up front, color distribution, very close, almost on the mark, with a very limited land base.
Didn't even
very limited land base. You didn't really? Nope. Did you also intend to put in all the different swamps and islands?
100%.
Okay, cool. A lot of effort done on that one. The CMC is 3/5, which is that to me is really interesting because I can kind of see this deck being built one of two ways, and I think that you are kind of straddling the line between it, right? So one way, and correct me if I'm wrong, one way you do it is you do it on the super cheap side, right? Mm-hmm. And the goal is you're getting these quick, repeatable effects early and often. And then the other side is you just only stack it with big, heavy hitters and try to get to that point as fast as possible. And I think your deck has done a good job of kind of walking that line where if you need to get that incremental value of those 2 drops or 3 drops just to progress you further in the game, you can. But you still have some big, like, giant game-ending threats on the higher end of the curve.
Yeah, and, I'm definitely trying to Johnny Cash it here. See what I did there? Walk the line.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, get it? It's always funny when you have to explain your own joke. But yeah, I think you've explained it great, Tuck. And this was a purposeful way I built the deck. Because, to use like a Sakura Tri-Builder, for example, I wanted the deck to have it to where you have these utility creatures that, they're really chump blockers. They may have a decent ETB effect or die effect or a tap effect. But it's okay. Well, if they do go to the graveyard, they serve one of two purposes. Either A, I could Encore them out and get multiple values, like getting 3 Sakura Tri-Builders. That's 3. Let me swing in. I got 2 damage in. One guy's going to block. Let's sack it. Go get the land. Then I'll sack the other guys to go get those lands. But then the other side is, well, now this is Encore fodder for my bigger things to exile out of the graveyard. So I do think, you could build it to where it's super high-end big creatures or super low-end tiny creatures. But I think the tiny creatures only works if you have stuff like Intruder Alarm to where you can Encore multiple times and you're able to just get filthy amounts of cards in your graveyard. It seems like something terrifying Tyler would do. And then for sure. on the upper end, I think you can only do that if you're in colors that can ramp incredibly hard, and Dimir just is not something I'm going to say like, I could get to 9 mana on turn 3. No, that's not really the way the colors play. So I think with this, because this is a mid-range commander, it's definitely a value commander. You have to build it to where you have your dink and dunk type creatures, you have your dink and dunk artifacts. It gives you something to do, and I'll say this flat out. This is definitely a 6 out of 10, maybe 5 out of 10 deck.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah.
And I don't really, and maybe we'll get to it, but I think it would be a stretch to try to make this into an 8 or a 9. I think this is one of those commanders that you said earlier. It's like a Kaza. It's just powered down compared to other Dimir because it even taps itself. So it's not like I can just activate it as much as I want to, as long as I can. You have to figure out ways to untap it or repeatably get more of the encore effects.
I think, and the last point, I agree with you for sure on the power level of it. And I think that if you wanted to make it super strong, you would just take out some of the fun cards and put in generic good blue-black stuff. And then it's like, what's the point of even trying to build this, right?
Yep, you totally got it. So he did talk about CMC. We talked about the color pie pricing. I was kind of surprised considering I did just throw this together. It's around $400-ish dollars. Which isn't that kind of sad though that a deck you just throw together is like $400?
I know,
like
right?
I feel like a deck you throw together should be $50.
Yeah, exactly. But there is like you did open some very valuable cards in Commander Legends, which I think like if you take out one of them, then it's like what 300 or something like that. Oh, and the big rip, the big money rip that you got out of the pack too. So if you take out 3 cards, it's like $200.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get into this deck. Let's talk about some composting. And every time I say that, I always think of Gwyneth Paltrow in Avengers Endgame. So I'm going to start this off with, remember, she has the book. And Tony's like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, reading about composting. He's like, what's new about composting?
Yes.
All right.
Let's remember that.
We're derailed. Let's go rampant grain build. I'm going to start this off. Yes, this is a Commander Legends card, but the way that you ramp in this deck is by filling the graveyard, not necessarily because you're going to try to cheat the stuff out like traditional Dimir, but because you need things to exile out of it. So it does that. It also provides me a flying blocker. It's a Edgar Allan Poe favorite. We're talking about a Crow of Dark Tidings.
Yeah.
2 colorless black creature zombie bird, which that's just terrifying. Zombies shouldn't fly. It's a 2/1 for 14 cents. Flying, when Crow of Dark Tidings enters the battlefield or dies, mill 2 cards. So you put the top 2 of your library into your graveyard. Well, this can't be a good sign. Old Russian. Rasputin, Rustin. So I like this for 3 because in theory it ramps me 2 into the yard, and then when it dies, which I want it to die, it's gonna get me another 2. So for 3, I'm getting 4 cards, actually 5 cards in the graveyard if you count itself. Yeah. And then, like Tuck talked about, I could do some value encore early game. Like, you know what? I'm not really doing anything. Maybe there's a Planeswalker that I need to kind of like chip away at a little bit. Let's go ahead and encore out Crow of Dark Tidings. Now I'm milling 6 at first, and then I'm going to mill another 6. That just means for basically 6 mana, I just milled, what's that? 12, 14, 16 cards. That's phenomenal. And I had 4 2/1 flying blockers or attackers.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head. Oh, excuse me.
I know, you get choked up about it.
It's just love Crow so much. No, I think you hit the nail on the head pretty much across the board. This is like one of those. This is one of those cards that's kind of been around for a while, and I don't think it's really found a deck that works. And this one in particular is weird because it plays a lot of mill cards, but very little like opponent mill, right? And usually this deck, you're kind of digging for like a reanimate target or something like that. So I think it does a lot of work here. And again, pain, it pays for, and the last thing I'll say too is it pays for itself with the cards exiled from the graveyard as soon as it comes in with the encore.
Yep.
So again, you chump block some flyer to protect something of yours. Next turn, you don't have much gas. You're off to the races.
You got it. All right, Tuck. What's your grain card?
So this is a card that I've had in so many decks. I would say probably 6. And it just always pretty much underperforms for me. Oh. And definitely doesn't shred. And maybe it's got a lion on it for some reason.
It's because Atlantis always pays its debts.
No. Or is it because Cersei always shreds paper? But I'm talking about, are we talking about this or am I?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm talking about Codex Shredder. Well, it's really basic artifact.
I love the build-up, and then when you finally say it, it's like, oh, we're talking about Codex Shredder.
Yeah, we're doing Codex Shredder. Figure it out. One colorless for an artifact. It's an uncommon, about 7 cents. Tap, target player mills a card, which is awesome now that's now an evergreen ability.
Yep.
Love it. So you put the top card of your graveyard in your library, and then 5 colorless tap, sack it, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So again, in this deck, I think there are a fair amount of mill decks where you can kind of hamper yourself by milling away a land that you desperately need, a removal spell, a planeswalker, whatever the case is, and you're really just trying to hunt for only artifacts or only creatures. Whereas in this deck, even if you do hit those value things that you can't get back out, you're still generating fodder for the big beaters, right?
That's something I always complained about that Geese and Geralf deck is whenever I cast them and then it's the mill 4, it's like, crap, I did an enchantment and this does nothing now. I have no way of doing it. And you were absolutely right. You mill an enchantment in this, it's like, oh, well, that's all right. I need stuff to exile anyways.
Right. And in this one in particular, you're winning through creatures that you're encoring out, right? So if you do hit one of those things, mana rock or protection enchantment or whatever, it doesn't hurt as bad. The 5 colorless and tap, I think, is probably pretty overcosted. But again, in a pinch, you can still sack it, get back what you need, and then it fills the graveyard for what you took out.
Exactly.
Which again,
it's kind of like what do we talk about? Kind of like the rummage or loot. It's card replacement. It's not card advantage. So in this, I'm not losing a card or gaining a card in the graveyard. It's just like, you know what? Let's put Codex Shredder there and let me get this omniscience back to my hand. Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I think this is a slam dunk for this deck too.
Yeah, and the other reason I really like it is a 1-drop. Just notice I don't have Soul Ring in here. Hilarious. Considering
we'll get to that.
But yeah, this card does a lot for the deck because I can play it turn 1 like a Soul Ring. And honestly, I'd rather have this over a Soul Ring turn 1 because I'd rather start getting things to the graveyard sooner rather than later. Because most likely in Dimir, I'm not getting my commander out till turn 3. Turn 4 is when she'll have Summoning Sickness gone and I can actually activate it. And if I've had Codex Shredder out since turn 1, that's 4 cards to the graveyard. That is 3 for an opponent and potentially a creature that I can encore on turn 4. So that's a lot of value.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right.
Slam dunk. Glad to see a deck it works in.
Well, I had to talk about some planeswalkers. Uh-oh. So we're going to talk about a bad boy from M21.
Yeah, we are. Here we go.
3, 2, 1. Teferi
Master of Time. 2 colorless, 2 blue for a legendary planeswalker. Teferi comes in with 3 loyalty counter at $10.
All right.
Boom.
It does have a static ability. You may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi on any player's turn anytime you could cast an instant. +1, draw a card, then discard a card, which I'll pause there. That's why it's in the green. Because anytime a planeswalker can do a plus ability and it fuels your game plan, that's great.
Yeah.
You know what? Attack it all day long if you want. But it does have some other things. -3, target creature you don't control phases out. This is in the Commander is Everything month. This deck sucks if I can't get Araumi on the battlefield and keep her there. So in a pinch, like you say, on my turn, I'm going to +1 and we're going to go to 4. Tuck's turn goes, he's like, you know what? I can't have this. Sorcery speed removal, or maybe you had to untap to try to get rid of Araumi because I have something gross in the graveyard. Okay, you know what? I'll just go ahead and -3 to Teferi. I'll go to 1. Let's phase Araumi out for the turn. Let that removal spell fizzle.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah? Target creature you don't control. All right, fine. It doesn't work that way. And then we got -10, take 2 extra turns after this one. That's irrelevant to me. I don't care.
I agree with you 100%, full stop. Usually +1, drawing a card and discarding a card can also kind of put you in weird conditions, right? You're filling up, you have to make choices of what to put in your graveyard. Here, similar in scope to Codex Shredder, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
Right? And you have, it's not a discard then draw, or, draw 3, have to discard one of those. You can really just continually choose the cards you don't need. And I think this is the -3, even though it doesn't protect you, phasing is such a bizarro, weird mechanic that can really shut down someone. I'm guessing playing this deck, people are going to kind of see, I think the hardest part for this deck is going to be turn 1 through about turn 5.
Yeah,
because you don't have a lot of tons of protection. You do have some like easy creatures, but if someone comes screaming out with some sort of Voltron, you're probably going to look like a pretty juicy target. And being able to eliminate that is great. And if you do get to the -10, I mean, the games should be over.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Think about it. It's really not, because if I get 2 extra turns after this one, that's 3 encore activations. Let's just say I got 3 opponents. Yeah. Am I really going to have, 9, 12, and 3 of those have to be big game-winning creatures? And then I have to have a way to get through? That's where really I think this deck is very mid-range. It's very much the... it's not a art of the Devil, because I'm not really king-making, but this deck is a very solid second-place deck. And I'm hoping through conversations and through some ads, we'll be able to maybe figure out how we can make this to where it could maybe win. And I definitely have some ideas. But, I just like the fact that I'm able to, traditionally when you see a Teferi Planeswalker in a deck, it's a gross thing. You're doing gross stuff, because I think Teferi has replaced Jace as the most OP Planeswalker. It used to be a new Jace got printed, everyone creamed themselves. Now it's Teferi gets printed, and everyone shits themselves. And so it's kind of cool that I was able to find a very powerful Planeswalker and just put it in an okay deck. And really, it's just okay. Because I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, Mr. Combo's about to take 2 extra turns after this. And people are going to be like, okay, what's in his graveyard? Sakura Tribe Elder and Codex Shredder. Who cares? Awesome. Do it.
Yeah, so I totally agree on that. And I think you've turned the corner for me on the -10 for sure.
All right, Tuck. Since we shared that, what's your last one?
Every once in a while when I look at some of your decks, I kind of need some guidance, perhaps. Maybe some would say a map.
Okay.
But luckily, they are now priced to buy as opposed to how they used to be. So one of my favorite ramps in non-greens, Expedition map.
Oh,
I love it. So again, a 1-drop artifact. It's a common. This used to be like $3.
I know. I remember one of the first times we talked with but Ultra Budget Brews. He actually said that he actually used to have Expedition map in every single one of his budget brew decks, but he had to take it out because the price creeped up so much.
Yep. Exactly, and you have the foil for 94 cents, right? Yeah. So really breaking the budget there. It's pretty straightforward. 2 colorless, tap, sack, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. I use maps to find out where explorers have already been. Then I'll go the other way. From our old pal Javad Nazrim, an Ondu Relic Hunter. So a lot of times the utility in this card is that the any land clause. So you go find your, Guy's Cradle or whatever.
Sure.
In my opinion, I still think that this card does work in especially non-green pairs, because being able to go get your Watery Graves or or whatever, like any kind of land that you need in a pinch, really helps to continue sort through your land base. And then beyond that, it goes in the graveyard, right? Which is something that you can just immediately cycle away if you want. And even if it's later game, you now have something that you can either discard or waste or somehow else to get into the graveyard to go fodder for something else.
That's literally the reason I also run Terramorphic Expanse in the deck, which how I feel about that card.
Yes.
I hate that card. Sorry, Squeak, a lot of bleeping you got to do this episode. But it's because the fact that even though I hate these cards and I do think they're incredibly slow, they do serve dual purposes, and I'm all about that modal life. And anything that can get me a little bit of value on the table and then a little bit of value in the graveyard, that's worth running in the 99.
Yeah. Especially like as you said, this is not a combo deck. This is not a screaming deck. It's a combo, or it's a value grinder.
Yeah.
So
sure.
yeah, I actually didn't notice the Terramorphic Expanse because I'm so used to seeing them in mine. Like, oh yeah, that tracks.
All right. Well, my last one is another Planeswalker. Shocker. But it's because that +1 ability gives me that value. And I just, it's literally like Teferi in black. It's just a little bit different. So we're talking about Liliana Death's Majesty, which I want to point out, this is the San Diego Comic-Con promo. If tapped out is correct, which we've already talked about, it's a piece of shit now and it sucks. Apparently this promo is only worth $4, which is very upsetting because I definitely spent like $100 for it. Not the card, but the set.
Yeah.
So anyway, Liliana Death's Majesty is 3 colorless, black, Planeswalker Liliana. It comes in with 5 loyalty, and it has 3 abilities, and it's a mythic. +1, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. That's a blocker. Yep. But the more important part is put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Literally Teferi, let's plus it. Granted, Teferi is a draw discard that could be a little bit better than just milling the top 2, but I'll take it, because that is ramp. -3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other color types. Other colors and types. I like that because I do run some legends in here that Encore just doesn't work. Now, granted, one of the legends I do on purpose because Encore doesn't work, and we'll get to that later. But for the most part, I don't want my legends immediately dying when they hit the battlefield. And then the last one, -7, that's a desperation thing. I don't really have any board wipes in here, I think. Looking through, no, I really don't.
I don't think I'm looking through it again. I am like 90% sure that you do not.
Yeah, I don't. So -7, destroy all non-zombie creatures.
Yeah, I don't.
So, I mean, that could backfire 1 out of 20 games, but I think it's fine. So
we'll get into the zombie bit a little bit later. Yes, and do not worry, my good Mr. Combo. The promo is still like $45.
Oh, there we go. I feel good.
So
Tap Out just continues a streak of sucking.
I think this is a weird, because I think Liliana's kind of in the same boat as Jace, where just because it's a Liliana card, people think it's better than it might actually be.
Sure.
And I think this one is one that kind of is
sneaky good.
Yeah, because I mean, -3 to return a target creature card to your graveyard. I think like Rise from the Grave costs 5.
Yep.
And it's just a one-time, it does the exact same thing. So you're replacing an effect like that for something that's repeatable and gives you advantage and fills your graveyard.
And like you talked about earlier, turns 1 through 5, granted this is a 5-drop, but you know, that early game, people are gonna, if the screamers are there, I might look like a juicy, easy target. Mm-hmm. So this creates a blocker. This can get a blocker from the graveyard. But then the other thing is people could be scared of it. So it's like, I need to attack that. So there is that thought process that Planeswalkers give you life gain because people can't lower your life total. And on top of that, when it dies, which it will, that is Encore fodder for Araumi.
Yeah, just put it right in the compost pile.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the ramp and grain section. Now we're going to have the board state and hot profile. Big Tuck, I'm curious. This is a value deck, so lots of grains, lots of hops. Let's see if we align on any here. So,
I hate to admit it, but every once in a while, a broken clock is correct twice.
Yes!
And there's a card in here that I think does a lot of work in this deck, and we've talked about it before, how, bits and pieces, drips and drabs do really matter. And I think that's one of the reasons why Bloodseeker is just such a slam dunk card.
Oh, you son of a bitch, because Bloodseeker's one of mine.
Damn it!
One colorless black creature vampire shaman. That's a common. You deserve it.
I was just gonna say I'll read out the whole thing, but you saw the bit. Well, you saw the bit I was working on there.
Oh, I know.
I saw how excited. Bloodseeker is pretty straightforward. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. A drop of blood is all he needs to find you later. Coming from Transylvania.
I'm so pissed because I actually opened this in one of my draft packs for the boxing league, and I never got to play it, and that just frustrated me to no end. But yeah, this card literally what you said my deck is weak against. fights that immediately. Like outside of Voltron. Outside of Voltron, can't do anything against that. But go wide token decks, like, okay, create 30 tokens. I'll drain you for 30 life.
Yeah, go right ahead. And if it dies, then great. Another thing to put on the compost pile.
Yeah.
And unlike Redacted card, which I'm sure you're going to get into next, this instead of attacking the library does the same thing to life totals. So you're just subbing one L word for another one. And
got it.
And I the other thing too is that since it's creature based, those little drips and drabs, those little nicks and cuts, they will start to add up over time. And I think and it's the same argument you make for Redacted card, that if this 2-drop nets you a total of 15 life
for 2 mana
across 3 players, all day, right? And it's, I think this is like similar enchantments we've spoke about. Creature removal is a lot more prevalent, but I'm pretty sure no one's gonna Wrath of God or pop a disc just to get rid of this thing comparative to millions of other stuff.
But here's the thing, though. Here's where I'd make the argument. The Redacted card, because I'm not talking about it, you're not talking about it. Altar of the Brood. It is in the deck. It's in the hops. Generate lots of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Altar of the Brood, unless you've played against me, you don't waste removal on that because you're like, this is stupid. You're not oh, wait, are you playing Bruvac? No? Okay, I don't care. So I think that's the difference between Altar of the Brood and Bloodseeker, because Bloodseeker, even if you've never played against me, if you see that and you're like, I'm playing Reese the Redeemed, I'm effed. Like, I have to get rid of that. I need a beast within. I need something. I think this actually does strike fear into those token players, whereas Altar of the Brood, unless you know me or you've seen it perform at another game, it's like this weird card that you don't catch on to until it's way too late.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And to your point, I think people value life over most of anything else.
Yes.
In my opinion, sometimes borderline foolishly.
Hold on. Let's rank what Magic players value the most. A, lands. B, their hand. C,
being able to play the game. I think that's pretty important.
Well, I'm talking about an actual physical resource.
Yeah, but yes.
Okay. We got lands, hands, decks, and then maybe life total? Or do you think life total's third?
I think most people think life total because it's
okay.
Their argument with the deck is I have 100 cards, right? But I only have 40 life, so if we go lands, hand, life, library.
There we go. All right.
Or to make it a mnemonic device.
Well, my second card is another card that I got in the boxing league, and I was able to play it, and I think Big Tuck was in the game. It's a blue beast. It's
we are. Yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh! 3, 2, 1. Phyrexian Ingester. 6 colorless blue creature beast. This is what you get for picking 2 of my cards.
It is a rare. It has imprint. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-token creature. Phyrexian Ingester gets +X+Y, which I looked this up, and I think there's only one other card that does this, the Y thing, where X is the exiled creature's power and Y is its toughness.
And it's a 3/3. And
yes, out of the gates.
Let me tell you guys, when I played it in the boxing league, like even paying 7, it's like that feels kind of bad, but it is exile, and it gets humongous.
Humongous.
You used a removal? Okay, let me encore and get 3 of them. How's that?
Yeah.
And the nice thing about it is most times in a game of Magic, when we're talking specifically Encore, usually it's one player that has the big creatures. It's usually not every single person has the big ones. But we all know with Encore, you have to send 1 at each opponent. So the nice thing with things like this is it can enter the battlefield and say Tuck is playing one of his Go Tall decks. Well, let me exile 3 of your biggest things. Or you're playing your Eldrazi deck. I'm going to exile 3 of your things, but I'm still going to send a 15-15 your way, an 18-18 your way, and a 10-10 your way.
Exactly. And I think these abilities... The ones that as I was kind of reading through the deck, I think the abilities that target anything as opposed to target player that you're attacking or something along those lines, I think those ones you just get so much bang for your buck. And also, I got to pour one out because one of the Aldrazis didn't make the 2021 cut, unfortunately. So here we go.
Oh my God, it just sounded like you drowned.
I'm trying.
But yeah, very cool card. I will say it's a little expensive, but I think that's the reason this deck, if this was a, let's just call it 5-drop, this goes from a 6 to an 8, like power level. Like if those types of cards would cost 5, but the fact that it costs 7, it's scary, but that's kind of what makes Commander very cool. Like these big, flashy spells, and especially when you're able to get 3 of them on the battlefield, that's pretty neat.
Totally agree.
All right. Tuck, there's one more. Are we 3?
I have another 7-drop.
Oh, nope, not it.
Okay. This is a card that I think is, in my opinion, doesn't get enough play or love, and I think it is because of the casting cost.
It's really expensive.
It's really expensive. Overseer of the Dam, though, I think does a lot of work. So 5 colorless black, creature demon. It's a 5/5 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you may destroy target creature. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped. So this, in an ideal world or in a normal world, you're paying 7 or maybe slightly reduced. You're blowing up any creature that you want, and you're also getting 2/2 zombie immediately, right?
Sure.
And usually the decks that I think this sees the most shine in is decks like a lot of Death and Taxes, where, you know, a lot of sacrifice, opponent sacrifice and stuff, and you're just getting zombies every which way.
Sure.
The thing that I think that this deck really benefits from is incidental token creation.
Yes.
Because you're going to encore something, and even if you encore this, so you're killing 3 creatures, you're getting 3 6/6 zombies, and then you're swinging in for 5 apiece, right?
Yeah, think each this way. This deck is kind of like taking steroids. You get big and beefy, like these big beefy creatures. Incidentally, you get back knee. It's just a little accident.
So I think cards that replace themselves off the encore, which we'll get into later, I think those ones really shine here and will help you push through to the end of the game to at least make it to the next encore, the next attack step.
And you didn't even hit on it. When you encore this out, you're actually going to make 9 zombies. Because they all see each other's die. Yeah. So
right.
It's pretty neat. I think the reason this probably doesn't see enough play is the 7 is a lot, but I think it's because it's the non-token creature. You're not allowed to hit tokens. That, I mean, granted, if you're doing a removal spell, you're usually not using it on a token unless it's like a Desolation Twin token or something.
Or Cauldra.
Yeah, there you go.
The last thing I'll say about this is at some point, this card was like $15.
That upsets me because that gives me hope that maybe Gaia's Cradles for $800 could be $15 again one day.
One day, man. From your mouth to Heliod's ears, dude.
All right. Well, my last one is a new removal spell, I believe. I actually really like it because it does a couple things in the deck. So I'm talking about Spark Harvest. So it's a single black. It's a sorcery. As an additional cast to cost a spell, sack a creature or pay 3 colorless black, which you'll never do. So it's 1 black, sack a creature, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Wish the harvest of Domri Spark. The Elder spell begun to fuel Bolus's ascension into godhood. So the thing I like about this is planeswalkers can be a challenge from time to time. This deck isn't necessarily getting lots of creatures to the board that can go at a single opponent. I am going tall in essence because I'm just kind of hitting each opponent with one thing typically. So I'm not usually going to be able to deal with planeswalkers as easily as maybe my opponents. And if someone does have a planeswalker like Ashiok that can exile graveyards, I need a way to get rid of it. Or I'm going to be screwed. So being able to pay a black, destroy the Ashiok is fantastic value. But then we've talked about it. I gotta find ways to get stuff to the graveyard. So if I cast Phyrexian Ingester on X turn, and it exiled a thing 3 turns.
It exiles Y.
Like it. And 3 turns later, now Tuck plopped down a Blightsteel Colossus. It's like, I need to encore this SOB out or I'm about to die. Like, that is no bueno for me. Let's spend a black. I can sack it. Let me destroy a Planeswalker or a creature, and then I can encore it out, deal with the issue, the Blightsteel, the whatever, and then I'm comfortable again. I'm back to the races.
Yeah.
So it's not quite murder. I mean, murder is the
Well, I was going to say this. I was literally just going to say this is just a better murder, especially in this deck. But hey, here you go.
But it's sorcery speed. But
that does suck. Yeah.
But I do like the fact that it's in essence getting 2 cards to my graveyard, the creature I sacrifice and the Spark Harvest, and I'm dealing with a problematic something.
Yeah. And the only thing I'll add on top of that is, because those tokens stick around till the end of turn once they're encored, I think you want as much stuff as you can do with them, right? So because this is sorcery speed, it kind of gives you the impetus to make a decision when you have something encored, whether it's a Baleful Strix or a Phyrexian Ingester that's just going to be sacked anyways. So trying to get that, trying to eke out those values before the encore trigger, before end step where you have to sacrifice them anyways, I think that's something that this deck can really leverage to its advantage as well.
No, I like that. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the Board Satan Hot Profile. Now we're going to head over to how does the deck kind of win in the Yeast package. And Big Tech, I'm just going to tell you right now, if you're looking at my deck alphabetical order, the first one, the second one, and the fourth one, that's what I got, because they're, in my opinion, the best.
Okay, well, we got wait, the first one, the second one, and the third one?
And the fourth one.
Okay, well, I have the first one, the third one, and the last one. So let's get it out of the way. Ready?
The first one. 1, 2, 3. It's that betrays.
Oof.
12 colorless creature Eldrazi. I'll read it. I've made you read enough. Annihilator 2. So whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacks 2 permanents. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card under the battlefield under my control. And then, because I was trying to zoom in to read it, because I'm on a screen that's super far away.
I can do the.
Oh, I want to hear your voice. Like, what is this? Like old timey prospector? Is it like scared civilian?
Please, shall go unheard.
God, you sound like Robert Baratheon on his deathbed.
God's so strong.
So the thing
12 mana is a lot, Mr. Combo. It turns out 12's quite a bit.
But here's the thing. I also ripped this in my boxing league. Didn't even get to see it. Really upsetting. B, here's the kicker, guys. Very seldomly am I probably going to cast this from my hand. I'm probably going to pitch it to the yard that mid, early, even late game, because it is 12 mana and we're in Dimir. But here's the thing. If I'm able to encore this out, it's not a game winner, but damn, it's going to be hard to beat me because I'm stealing probably 6 permanents total. Yep. And now you got to block 3 11/11s. Yeah.
I think this card, the one that you're talking about, the fourth one, I think that... This one and that
backbreaking.
Yeah, those two are your best chance of one-shotting someone, right?
Yeah.
And I think to your point about this being so expensive, this is a card. It follows the same exact thing we've talked about so many times. Where if you're going to pay 8 for a card on the top end, it better do something horrendous, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you can finagle it where it's like, after a board wipe, after a disc, that sort of thing, and you're still left with the resources to do it. Very few people can stop it, right? That being said, it isn't there. If depending on the situation of the game, people could just have tokens or they have lands to sack or something like that, right? So it is situational, but the upside of the advantage that you will get, even if let's say you just get 6 lands, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that's worst case scenario. Next turn, you can literally encore anything you want in your entire graveyard and cast something from your hand.
Yeah, I was about to say, because you're already encoring for 12, you could probably do anything you want. But then, because usually if you're encoring for 12, I'm tapped out, I'm done. But then on top of that, cast stuff from your hand, that's just gross.
Yeah.
And something, Tuck, we haven't talked about. I talked about it earlier in the week on 40 Life and a Dash. I think the cool thing about Encore is blue control decks have a very hard time dealing with it. Because there are blue counter spells that deal with activated abilities, but there's not a lot.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's actually
the stifles disallows the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I was able to deal with Duff in that last 40 light and a dash. Is like, hey, let me bend the cards that I want to be able to get out with Carador, because then I can use Carador's ability to get it to the battlefield, opposed to casting it from my hand. And so, if that betrays is absolutely a counterspell target. And so, like, turn 4, hey, I'm going to Teferi +1, bend if that betrays. Guys, don't worry, 12 mana. It's turn 4. It's turn 4. I'm desperate. Yep. So.
Yeah, I agreed. It is cool. And also shocking that it's $17, but I guess it's never been reprinted, so there you have it.
Yeah, there you go. All right. And somehow I pulled that Ristic study. My packs were just money.
Yeah, you're Citadel of Pain, which is $10 now for no reason.
Oh, that's just sitting on my desk upstairs. Yeah. I think covered in paper. I don't know.
I hope so.
All right. Well, what is your second one?
So if this was going to be a pre-con, and every pre-con comes with like a backup commander or two, this would definitely be the backup commander.
100%.
Without, right? Like, no questions asked. The price is right, the ability is right, and everything. So,
Drew Carey on the card.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's good. And this is another card that I like and haven't quite figured out where it goes, and it fits perfect in this deck. So Lazav the Multifarious is just a beating. Colorless black or Dimir blue-black. Legendary creature, shapeshifter. It's a mythic. 1/3 on the field. When it enters the battlefield, surveil 1. Perfect. Take it or leave it, right?
Yep.
Take it, put it to hand. Maybe it's a draw spell. Maybe it's a Codex Shredder. If not, we'll deal with that later, right? Great out the gates. X, colorless. Lazav the Multifarious becomes a copy of target creature card in your graveyard with converted mana cost X, except its name is Lazav the Multifarious. It's legendary in addition to its other types, and it has this ability. So again, it's just like, it's effectively a second worse copy of Araumi.
Yeah.
Because again, if you get to the point where you have 12, you pay this for 2, you look, it's an If That Betrays, see ya, next turn, you're swinging in with it already. And even in the early game, I don't think you have a lot of ETB effects, as you should. You do have a few things that have static abilities.
Well, and I do have some tap, like Deranged Assistant, tap a card, get a colorless. So there's some little value things sprinkled in.
Right. But you also have stuff where you also have a lot of things where if something dies, or if it gets a board wiped, and that's why I think that this card in particular is very powerful in this deck, because you can do this at any time, right? It doesn't have to be an attacker. It can also be a reactionary measure to deal with someone else's board wipe or something else along those lines.
No, 100%. Well, I guess I have to pause the podcast right now because I'm confused. I feel like I'm talking to Batman. It got real dark wherever Tuck is.
I need to... hold on. I
don't know. Is it Bruce Wayne? Is it Batman?
We recorded so early, I didn't have to turn on my light yet. But I was like, my eyes are killing me. And I didn't even wear my glasses.
But yeah, I think you hit everything on the head. The reason Lazav is a yeast is because I legitimately can play it turn 10 beyond and immediately activate it, immediately make it something disgusting, and... be able to kind of go off to the races with it. It can kind of protect itself. Hey, you're about to, like you said, board wipe. Let's make it something that's, if it's a damage-based red spell, let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it indestructible. Hey, you're about to do, another thing. I know you're not talking about this card, Sir Conrad. Oh, you're about to do something really gross and everything's going to die? Okay, I'll turn it into Sir Conrad and I'll probably win the game. How many times have we seen Sir Nathan do that with Sir Conrad?
Yep. 100p. 100p, baby.
It's interesting because it almost should be a hops card because it can kind of mold to whatever my opponents are doing and interact. But I think its top end is so top end that it's hard to ignore.
It definitely, in this deck, feels like one of those cards we've talked about that could... Depending on when you play it, could be any one of the categories, right? It could even be Spice if you're doing something silly with it. So just really, like I said, this is a card that got spoiled and I liked, and it's just awesome to see a home for it that works.
So this is the card I'm going to talk about is a card that's been in my binder for a hot minute, and I've always wanted a home for it because I love the Dragon Legends. But it seemed overcosted for what it does. But holy balls with Encore, is it good?
Yeah.
We're talking about Kaiga the Tide Star. 5 colorless blue, legendary creature, dragon spirit. It's a rare. It's a 5/5 flyer. When Kaiga dies, gain control of target creature. The pull of the tide star holds eternal sway.
Who needs glasses now? You have your TV is too damn big.
It is too damn big. Well, and then of course with tapped out, whenever I like zoom in with it, it like shifts the card image so that I can see it.
Yep.
So I like this card for a couple reasons. One, I think paying 6 for it to just cast it from my hand is okay. That's like desperate move. There's flyers coming at me. I need a blocker. They probably don't want it to die. Blah, blah, blah. Most likely, though, I'm going to bin it through one of my rummage, one of my draw discard, something Codex Shredder. I'm trying to get this to the graveyard because paying 6 to maybe steal 1 creature doesn't feel good. Paying 6, exiling 3 cards from my graveyard and encoring it, and yes, I'll have to immediately sacrifice 2 of them, but then it could be one of those situations to where, we talked about it, encore, you have to send 1 to each opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if the one opponent I want to kill, they have 2 blockers? All 3 enter, 2 of them have to get sacrificed. I sacrifice the ones that aren't going at that one. Let me steal your blockers, and now I kill you.
Absolutely.
And now, at the end of turn, when I sacrifice this, I steal another creature, and now I have basically replaced my encore. I had 3 Kaigas. I could only attack with 1, but now I have 3 of whatever I want. I think this is the kind of ability that actually makes this card good.
So I almost had a card. So I'm not putting this card in, and I'm not trying to bury the lead on the bottle capping, but I think there's a build of this. I think there's a build where you really lean into the legendary effects, right? Because a lot of them are good. They enter the battlefields and dies, and then you can play something like Shakasima, the new one where the legend rule doesn't apply, and get those attacks in. I was going to put it in, then I realized I think you have like maybe 6 legendary creatures in the entire deck. So, but I think that there are ways to build this deck where you can get kind of both the best of both worlds, right? Of those big legendary swing-ins and their abilities dying. And I think Kaiga specifically is like a prime example of that, right? Completely agree with you. 6 mana. I didn't even run this in my Dragons deck, to be honest with you, because this is way too much. Yeah. So I completely agree again with the fact that like it's another cool card and it works so well in this deck. Casted, encored, whatever way you call it.
Yeah, because let's just be honest, guys. If anything said pay a colorless blue, steal a creature, you'd play it.
Oh yeah,
and that's literally what encoring this is. Pay colorless blue, steal a creature. So
it's also funny. It's also funny to think that this deck gets worse. Most decks, the fewer opponents you have, the more excited you are to play it. But this one's like the opposite.
So much worse. But this deck is kind of like Sir Nathan and Sir Conrad deck. He will not play it typically in 3 pods or less because he needs the multiple opponents. And I think this is one of those decks as well. Is like I almost kind of want to be able to figure out some big splashy way to kill everyone at once, opposed to let me kill you now let me kill you now.
Yeah,
awesome. On encore 1.
Yeah, well, there's probably there will probably be times in you playing this deck where you realize that you could kill someone, and then you look at your board, you realize it'd be disadvantageous to do so. So you're like, I don't want to.
All right, Buck. Well, what's your last Yeast card?
We had to bring it up. I think we've only talked about this once or twice, but just Wormcoil Engine is just busted. It's such a good card. And
it's stupid.
It's so stupid. So for those who don't know, and now it's $16. I might actually have to go pick up a copy of it. How much? I think I only have the one. Oh, like 30, 40, something like that. Yeah, believe it. So Wormcoil Engine is just I've talked to people who have the argument where you can just put this in every commander deck, and they're probably not wrong.
Yeah.
6 colors for a 6/6 artifact creature worm. It's a mythic rare, about $17. Death Touch, lifelink, already on its face, incredible. When it dies, create a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature token with the Death Touch, and a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature token with lifelink. I don't think that pound for pound, there's a card that you get better value at anywhere, or anytime you cast it in this deck in particular.
You don't think Mere Battlesphere?
Is that in here?
No.
Oh, well, I'm just saying, like,
sorry, I thought you were just talking about in general. My bad.
No. I'm talking about in this deck in particular, right? Because worst Worst case scenario, you have a 6/6 Death Touch lifelink on the board that's going to die and compost itself, right? Yeah. That's worst case. You gain 6 life back immediately, kill a creature, whatever. So that's like the lowest bottom end, which is insane value for 6. But the encoring this for 6 and 3 cards is absurd. So you're guaranteed to at least kill 3 creatures that they're blocking of any variety. You gain what? 18 life, and then you're left over with the exact same amount of value that you had putting into it.
Yeah.
So it's just, like I said, I don't know. This is kind of the same people who have that argument of like it should go in every deck. They're the same people. It's like put a swords of X and Y in every single deck that you own, just because you never know.
Mana crypts in every deck.
Yeah, right. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but the amount of value that it generates in this deck repeatedly on cast and from the graveyard is just completely bonkers.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the only reason it's in the deck is because its value.
Yeah.
Okay, so I run this in my Carador deck, and it's purely because, I can play it, I can sack it.
The same reason, yeah.
And then I can pay, but then it's paying 6 to bring it back out each time. I think this deck is better because, in theory, your top end that you pay is 12 mana, exile 3 cards, you gain 24 life, and you're going to make 4 3/3 lifelinks and 4 3/3 death touch creatures, which could win you the game on the next turn if they can't board wipe. Yeah,
completely agree. And I think even here, we've talked a lot about like floor and ceiling in this deck, and I think this one has the narrowest of the two, right? Because even just playing it out of its gates at the low end is still so solid with the backup plan in it as well.
For sure.
So yeah, did you have one of these lying around? Question mark.
Yeah, I pulled it in Double Masters.
Oh, nice.
So before I get to my last card, I do want to do a special shout out because we this card left and right, but this deck it actually does do well. Sepulchral Primordial is actually good in this deck.
Interesting.
And the only reason it's good in this deck is if you encore it out for 7, even if only one opponent has decent creatures. That is 3 creatures you get from their graveyard, which is phenomenal for 7 mana. But its super top end is you're getting 9 creatures for 7 mana. That is really, really good. And that is value you can't deny.
It was kind of on the cutting list, but I want to see it work on it because again, if you had, I think I would agree with you. I'm fine with it because I want to see this card actually work because I own enough damn copies of it. I think if you ran more mill stuff, like everyone mills stuff, I think this card would really shine in this deck. But I'll let you have it for now.
All right. Well, obviously, we're talking about it. My last one is Massacre Worm because this potentially on Encore wins me the game on the spot. So 3 colorless, black, creature worm from M21 is my copy. It's a 6/5. When it ETBs, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn. So if you Encore this out, your creature's opponents are getting -6 until end of turn. I think we can agree. That's basically a board wipe for my opponents.
Yeah,
9 times out of 10. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. Oh, wait, Tuck. Let me rephrase that. When you encore this out, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 6 life.
Oh,
because each Massacre Worm will see it.
So good.
So, I mean, it's not out of the realm for each opponent to have maybe 5 creatures, 4 to 5.
Yeah.
That's 24 to 30 life. By the time I'm encoring this that late in the game, that's probably your life total, 24 to 30, somewhere in there.
Yeah, you have, if you factor in, okay, there's only been 1 board wipe in the game, and even if you, like you said, if you have a screaming hot run out of this, and you get this in on turn 5, then it's even better, which is
I don't know. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Because I think part of its value, like if you're just saying you got a 6/5 that you could swing at, okay, cool. But I think I only want to play this. Now, if you're talking about from my hand, sure. But I'm only going to encore this when someone has 5 or 6 creatures.
Right.
Because you just don't get the value.
Yeah. I agree, but I was saying I agree with that. There are games that someone on turn 5, if you're playing the right deck, all of them could have 5 creatures out already.
Gotcha.
Right? And then you just play this and it's over. So, yeah, this is probably
It's probably the best.
It's got to be, right?
I mean, next to Rings of Bright Hearth, which is also in my Yeast, because you can do Encore twice. But I have found, because I have been able to get rings during the EDH Boxing League, and that means you're having to Encore 6 cards out of the graveyard plus your 2 creatures. You start to get a little, and then you got to pay the mana for it, so you do start to get a little resource strapped. But I would put Massacre Worm right there with it.
Yeah, it's a beating. I can't believe you just had one lying around. It's so good.
From M21. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we're going to head over to the spice package, guys. And Big Tuck, I think we're picking the same card.
It's gotta be, right?
3,
call us 2, Ahab and Ahab and Ishmael right here. Here we go.
All
Ready?
Right. 3, 2, 1. Pursued
Whale. Hell yeah. I'm so proud of you.
Whale. It's so fringe. It's so fringe.
I don't care. It's so great, and I'm so proud of you because I know you just had one of these lying around and just windmill slammed it like some sort of maniac, like some sort of big tuck, and I just couldn't be happier. So, when Pursued Whale enters the battlefield, each opponent creates a 1/1 red pirate creature token with this creature can't block, and creatures you control attack each combat if able. Spells your opponents cast at target Pursued Whale cost 3 more to cast. I just love it. Like, there's no downside. You encore it and they get, okay, congratulations. Here's 3 8/8s, and you all get, what, 3 1/1s? Great.
That can't block.
Yeah. So
here's the thing, though. That theory only works if they have no other creatures. Because the big negative to this is that they do have to attack, and who are they probably going to attack? Me.
Boom, 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 boom.
But this does 2 things that I love on a Magic card. A, it creates off-color tokens. I love that.
Oh, yeah, that is, I'm there for it.
And B, it goads. Which is just fantastic. So it is a card that I will say, if this deck ever gets trying to be a little bit better and trying to figure out what its identity is, it'll probably be one of the first ones to be cut, unless I put in propaganda, if I start putting in some of those Demir staples, which I've tried to stay away from to a certain extent in the deck. But it is a very cute card.
Yeah.
And I hope I get to do it one day, because I just want everyone to laugh.
There is like a kind of like third option of branch where it's just cute card. Like, you're like, okay, I know I'm not going to win with this deck, so I might as well have fun. And it's just all like bizarro cute cards like this that like kind of offer incidental value, but not really.
See, the issue, though, is our play group, you can't really play cute decks because you'll die real.
Yeah, because you will, and I'm quoting here, die on turn 5 because you couldn't protect yourself.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up the spice package. Now we're on to the bottle capping. As a reminder, it's going to be Big Tucks and Ice cuts and adds to the deck that are going to be under $5, under $50, and a no budget recommendation. We just can't talk about mana only lands.
So I have a turn 0 here. That's really going to make this easy for you. You take Sisay's Ring, you take it out of the sleeve, and then you take Soul Ring, just put it right on in there. There you go. Let me save you 3 mana. Because I know you got piles of them, and Mr. Combo, if you don't, guess who does? Me. I have like 15 now.
God, what are you, like Michael Jordan now, just wearing all your rings?
Well, I like, okay, so I took a bunch of like Soul Rings and other like utility stuff, and I put them in my bulk bin to give away, and then that lasted for about a week, and then I was like, and like went back in and took them all out.
I'd say you're just gonna give away Soul Rings.
No, and this was like, it's I have like a small box of like crap rares, mostly allies, that I'm just gonna like sell for cents on the dollar. And I was like, okay, I can sprinkle in a few Soul Rings in here and make it seem like it's worth more than it is. And then I just panicked and put them back in my binder.
So the first card I'm going to cut is a card that I wanted to work in this deck because I think it actually does great, but I'm missing a lot of Death Touch to actually make it worthwhile.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to be cutting Hooded Blightfang. I think this works great with Encore. It's just this can't. I think I only have 2 other Death Touch creatures in the entire deck. That's not worth it. So 2 colorless black, creature snake from M21. It's 1/4. Death Touch. When a creature you control with Death Touch attacks, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Because in theory, that would mean, because each of them sees each other.
Yeah.
So then what does that end up? That's 3 on each, and I gain 3.
So you get 9, right?
Would it be 9?
Because this one would be 3. Because it sees itself in the 2 others. This one sees itself in the 2 others, right? So it'd be 9.
So it'd be 9. So 9 is good for 3.
Well, and
I gain 9 life. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a Planeswalker, destroy that Planeswalker. So I actually run this in my Shirai deck, but it's because I counted, and I think I have 10 Death Touch. And even that, I was like, oh, this seems kind of fringe, but I think I can make it work because I can get a lot of those 1 power guys back. And here, having 2, even though its top end is stupid good, I don't think it's good enough.
Yeah, I'm on board. I think there's a reason why it's in the spice, right? If you wanted to build, I think Hooded Blightfang is a very strong card, but that comes with the cost of like it's kind of a build around card a little bit, right? A little bit, like you're not just gonna slam this in every deck. So there's a version of this deck that exists that this card is an all-star in. I'm not convinced it's this one.
So the card I want to add into the deck, I think could do
Phyrexian
a little
Arena.
bit more. No. I think it could do a little bit more. You don't even need to Google it. You know what the card is. Gray Merchant of Asphodel.
Oh my god. Yes.
I think this does a little bit more. But here's the issue. The tokens don't have black pips, so you're not going to get their effect off the Encore. What's going to end up happening is you're going to get 3 triggers of Gray Merchant. So Gray Merchant of Asphodel, 3 colorless, black. Creature zombie, it's a 2/4. One of the ETBs, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way, and each black and the mana cost of permanents you control counts towards your devotion. So you're not going to get any devotion from then, which people online were saying you do, which I think is just wrong. Because they were saying each opponent would lose 21 life, and you would gain 63, which I think that's wrong.
For each opponent, a token... I don't think so.
Because
tokens don't have...
Yeah, they don't have a CMC.
But it still has the pips on it, I think.
It does? I think that's only if you... Okay, so we'll just assume that people on the internet are right and I'm wrong. So
I don't know, because I thought the same. I agreed with you up front. So who knows, right?
But we'll talk about it this way. The high end, that is probably wrong. Each opponent loses 21 at a minimum with my commander on the battlefield, because it's 2 from each Gray Merchant plus the 1 from Araumi. Each Gray Merchant sees itself, so that's 21 from each. I gained 63. That's a lot better than each opponent losing 9 and me gaining 9.
Yeah, right.
The bottom shelf of it, though, is if I just have my commander, each opponent loses 3, I gain 9. So it's a little bit worse than the Hooded Blightfang, but that's the absolute bottom floor of it. If I just have anything else with black pips on the battlefield, it can get really, really out of control. And so I think this could be another way that I could potentially win the game, like a Massacre Worm. Hey, late game, I got some permanents. Let's Encore out Gray. 3 copies of it. And I think the thing that's going to take people, Tuck, a little bit to get used to with this deck is they'll see Gray Merchant in the graveyard. They're like, oh God, that's really good. How many black pips does he have? 5? Okay, so we'd each lose 7. He gains 21. Okay, we can live through that. I think they'll forget that I get the 2 other copies of the Gray Merchant as well.
Yes.
Because you just don't see people getting 3 copies from a graveyard. Encore. Yeah, Encore hasn't been out long enough for people to see that. So,
no, I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's like slam dunk. There's also, you have Fleshbag Marauder. There's all sorts of variations of that are good. Just like, just mono black bombs, man, all day.
Oh God, could you imagine encoring Fleshbag?
Oh yeah, you did it to us.
Hey, I'm just each of you guys sacrifice 3 permanents, and I'll just get rid of my 3 Encore tokens.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, don't even matter.
All right, Tuck, what's your first cut for under 5, and what are you gonna add?
So I am gonna cut your old pal Helen Golem. So Helen Golem
that's fair.
It's a leftover. I think it's a little bit of a leftover. I think it's a really strong card in like a boxing league, but I don't think it really pushes the needle here. So Helen Golem is 3 colorless. It's an artifact creature golem. It's a 2/3. It wails of buried riches and the souls lost seeking them. Whenever Helen Golem attacks or blocks, each player draws a card. If it was you draw a card, sure. But I think even if you encore this out, you're drawing what? 3, and then you're losing what, 9, because each other opponent is drawing 3 as well. So although ironically we just talked about how it's not a Death Touch deck, this is one of my favorite cards in Magic, and certainly one of my favorite abilities. Legends are kind of sticky, right? They're kind of tough. So I think you really need to have a strong ability if you're going to run a legend. And I think our old pal, lurking in the shadows, in the lap of luxury, fits the bill. So Gonti, Lord of Luxury.
Oh.
So much fun. Come on. 2 colors, 2 black for a legendary creature, Aetherborn Rogue, Death Touch. It's a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. Exile one of them face down, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. You may look at that and cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may spend mana as those mana of any type to cast that spell. So if we're playing against one dickhead person, the Tylers of the world, or someone who you know is just going to be brutalizing you. Again, we've talked about how these sort of effects, you don't have to take the card that's best for you. You can also take the one that's worse for them to lose. So being able to stack 12 cards on the top of someone's deck and take 3 that they can't do anything about for the rest of the game is worth the price of admission alone, in my opinion. It sucks. It does suck, and I hear you, where if you can't find the right person to find that, and you're also, a lot of the encore stuff that we're trying to do is attacks, right, and finishing the game that way. But even casting this for 4, chump blocking something big, and then encoring it later, I think will give you the value that you're looking for out of it, especially at the 4 drop.
So I'll say this. I don't like the card for this deck, but I think the cut that you recommended is the perfect way to justify Gonti in the deck, because I think what the deck is missing is a way to actually win and finish the game. And Howling Golem is obviously not going to do that. Gonti is not going to do that. And I probably would rather pay 1 more mana to, we'll just put it this way. I'd rather pay 2 total more mana if we also count encoring this out, to look at 16 cards of someone's deck and exile 4 of them, than me potentially draw 4 cards and my opponents draw 12. So I do think from that perspective, it actually does fit better, and it gets me black pips for Gray Merchant, which is nice. It does, depending on your other cuts, it does somewhat diminish the Sphinx Summoner that I have in the deck, because I don't have too many artifact creatures. I have 7. And so now Howling Golem, now I'm at 6. And it starts to make Sphinx Summoner kind of become that fringe card. Like, is it really worth 5 mana to just go get Wormcoil Engine?
Honestly, like, Sphinx Summoner was kind of on the chopping block, but I think the fact that it can go get so many good cards, like, it pretty much just, Sphinx Summoner just says, I'm going to get my creature ramp package and or Wormcoil Engine, because you're going to get Burnished Heart, Solemn, and Pilgrim's Eye.
Anything like that, yeah. No, that's fair. All right. Under 50, I hate that I'm cutting this card. I really do, because I like it, but I started to think about it. It's a legend. It only has 2 toughness, which sucks. And with the Encore ability, because it does say 1 or more cards leave, you only at most get 2 tapped to 2 black zombie creature tokens. So I think cutting Tormod the Desecrator from this deck makes more sense than leaving it in. So 3 colorless black, legendary creature zombie wizard. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. And because of the way that Araumi is worded, tap, exile cards from your graveyard equal the number of opponents you have. Target card in your graveyard gains encore till end of turn. So you tap it, you exile the 3, you get your first 2/2, and then target card in the graveyard gains encore. But it's not like you do it all in the same thing. You can encore after it's resolved. So then you get your second 2/2 tap zombie. And so that's nice, and I think if the zombies came in untapped, or if Tormod had like a 4 or 5 toughness, I could justify it a little bit more, but it's a 4/2, and I'm getting tapped at most 2/2 black zombies.
So I'm actually doing a last minute change. I'm actually also going to cut this card because I didn't realize. I thought that since you're exiling the 3 cards, you get 3 zombies, but then I reread it, you just get the 1. So I'm on board. This was one that I was kind of eyeballing as well, where I don't know if you're going to get the value that you want out of it, right? I completely agree with you on that.
Cool. Well, the card I'm going to add is one of your favorite Titans. It's a big boy, and when you encore him, you get way more zombies than Tormod can ever make. We're talking about your old pal Grave Titan. So 4 colorless black creature giant. It's a mythic. It's a 6/6 for $9. God, good God.
Hey, count your blessings. This used to be a $20 card.
Death Touch. I love how we're getting away from Death Touch, yet we keep adding Death Touch.
We're turning into Death Touch Tribal. We're keeping Hooded Blight Frang in.
Whenever Grave Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, put 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. Death in form and function. So here's the thing.
Oh, this is bonkers.
On its low end, it's just Grave Titan, which is a good card. Everyone already knows it's in almost 15,000 decks on EDH Rec.
What? Yeah. Wow.
So it's a great card. But its encore end... Here's what you guys get. Here's what you get. On ETB, you get 30 power. 3 6/6 Grave Titans. And what would that be? So 3 6/6 Grave Titans, 6 2/2 black zombies. Then they attack for their encore. You get another 6 2/2 black zombies to the battlefield. And then your Grave Titans go away. So basically for 6 mana... exiling 3, you did a total of, what's that, 30, 34, 30, 42 power for 6 mana. That is absurd. I think if you compare this to a lot of the other cards in this deck, the fact that they don't come in tapped at all, and you have this reserve of defenses, because that... one of my cuts will kind of address that as well. Like, you need a way to defend yourself in this game, right? Yes.
And these lasting effects, especially Grave Titan, where now not only do you have, because I mean, you almost effectively, you're 1 mana short from Army of the Damned when you cast this from Encore, right? Which usually is enough to win the game, and they can block, so people can't even come in and try to rush you out. So yeah, the only thing I don't like about it is kind of like a generic good black card, but the fact the fact that it plays into all aspects of this deck in every single form and function, to me, makes it a little more slimy than greasy.
Well, and I think it's to the point of the worm coil. Like, you could make and obviously people on EDH Rec do it. Just put a Grave Titan in every black deck, put a worm coil in every EDH deck. But this deck, because of the way Encore works, it just makes it that much more oppressive, gross.
Yes.
But it's also such a new mechanic to where it's like people are interested. They're scared, but it's like you get your fear boner.
Yeah,
it's like, whoa,
it's that meme. It's that meme where it's like, mark me down as scared and horny. Can't wait to see this out.
What are you gonna replace Tormod with?
I'm surprised you didn't have... I'm guessing you just don't have one of these lying around. In similar scope to how you chose one of my favorite cards that have been printed, I am gifting you with one of your favorite cards that have ever been printed.
But I already have Alter the Brood in the deck.
Very true, but you do not have an Agent of Treachery.
So that actually was going to be my personal recommendation, and I did a last-minute cut from it.
Because
I was eyeballing.
It's not expensive enough?
No, it's... I'll tell you why when we get to my... I was going to have this as an honorable mention. This card's amazing, though.
So I think we're on the same kind of wavelength. So Agent of Treachery is 5 colorless, double blue for creature, human, rogue, doesn't matter. 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. The more secrets you have, the more easily you become my pawn. So I know you like this card from the jump. Yep. So I just like this card straight out. But I do like the fact that a lot of people just kind of see this as like a treachery with a body, right? But the fact that, and again, 7 is just this weird gap. Like 6, 7 is like where all the top end is, right? So it's just funny that pretty much every card that we've talked about that we've gotten excited about has been 6 or 7. So,
and then you go to 12.
7 and then 12. So I think the fact that when you do, this card is very impactful anyway you cut it, right? Stealing a permanent, you're not going to just take a land. You're going to take probably the best card on the battlefield, right? Omniscience, Prosh, whatever the case may be. But the fact that when you encore this out, if you do have 3 opponents, you immediately get to draw 3 cards after it resolves and after you sack everything else. I think that's where the power really comes in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing I really like about it is, once again, I build my decks top down. So every single card I'm putting in the deck, I'm thinking of how does it work with Encore? How can I leverage it with Encore? And the challenge with Agent of Treachery and EDH is you traditionally have to run it in decks that steal permanents because that second ability, unless you're flickering it, you'll never get it.
Yeah.
But with this deck in Encore, the 3 come out, I take 3 permanents. At the end of turn, I'm going to draw 9 cards.
Oh, right.
That's disgusting. That's really good. And we've talked about it. I want stuff to the graveyard. I don't have no maximum hand size. Oh, you know what? I think I'll throw that if that betrays down there. Let's throw the Grey Merchant in there. Like, which one do you want to exile, boys? It's a fantastic card. And like you did point out, you can steal the 3 biggest threats or things that are hindering me from actually getting through.
Yeah. And you do have your Thassa Deep Dwelling as kind of like a Hail Mary because you have all these super powerful ETBs. Just in case your commander gets killed 4, 5, 6 times, you can still kind of get that value out of them.
It's funny you mentioned that because I legitimately went through the deck yesterday and was like, do I cut Thassa Deep Dwelling? Like, do I even have enough in here? And I was like, I think I counted out of my 34 creatures, I had 16 or 17 with ETB effects, which I feel like if 50% of your creatures can do an ETB, then you could justify Thassa.
And even looking at the ones that we're cutting, right? We're like Helen Golem, no effect, no ETB. Tormod the Desecrator, no effect. No ETB. Great Titan, Agent of Treachery, like just sticking those with the Thassa. I think there's I don't think it's worth it or would be in the color of the deck to build out a complete blink like Conjurer's Closet and that whole thing. But just having that option there, I think kind of gives you another out in similar scope to Lazav.
Yeah, the one artifact that I did consider putting in, I'm not adding it for one of my cut ads, and I don't think you are because you're not a degenerate. But I do think Panharmonicon is one to
look at
for the deck. Could you imagine that with Encore with some of these ETB things? Oh my God. Hey, Massacre Worm, -12. I do kill everything except for Emrakul. All right. We're on to the no budget. And boy, did I not break the bank.
Yeah, I didn't. I think Agent of Treachery was my most expensive at like $7.
But here is what I'm going to cut. I'm cutting a Spice. It's funny because
could this potentially be? Could this be where a trail of breadcrumbs might lead you to? Oh.
It would not. I do like that card because it's a sack outlet, and I do need to gain life from time to time. But this card I'm cutting, even though we've added in zombies and ways to generate zombies, I think the zombie token thing is a sub theme of the deck. It's not one I should dedicate card slots to. So Liliana, Untouched by Death, I just don't think has a home, and I should probably figure out if I have it in my Gisa and Geralf deck, and if not, put it in there instead.
To be fair, that was the thing that I swapped Tormod the Desecrator with, but I really didn't want to cut 2 Spice.
Gotcha. So 2 colorless black, legendary planeswalker Liliana. It's a mythic from 19. It comes in with 4 loyalty. +1, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. If at least one of them is a zombie card, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2. -2, target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of zombies you control. -3, you may cast zombie cards from your graveyard this turn. Literally, I'd be paying 4 mana for a target. Granted, I guess it could throw people off and make them attack it, but you're paying 4 mana to mill 3 once a rotation.
Yeah.
I think I can do better.
Yep. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take this out of the sleeve, go put it in G-Sense Revolve, and put anything else in here, anything we've talked about.
All right. Here's what we're putting in, buddy. You're going to hate it. It's so gross. It's so mean.
You're going to hate it.
It's called Grave Pact.
Oh boy.
Colorless, black enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. Let's see.
Krovax is sort of
Krovax Ascendant Evankar. I don't even know if that was listenable, legible, or anything. But we talked about it, guys.
Yeah.
Those Encore things get sacrificed at the end of turn, so they do get die triggers, which is a big difference from Myriad. So, hey, let me Encore out, do some gross stuff. And by the way, at the end of my turn, each opponent sack 3 creatures. Okay.
Yeah, there's really, if we're being dead to rights of Magic players here, you need to have this and probably Dictate of Erebos in here.
Sure.
If you want to be a degen, but yeah, there's not a whole lot to be said, and it deals with pips. If Grey Merchant's going to be your big win out, right? 3's a lot.
Yeah.
Not the thing that I just realized is that the particular art on the most recent one that's come out, the illustrator, Puddinhead.
So wait. Do you think that's the Joker?
Dude, oh, nice. He has 19 cards that are on tapped out. Or I'm sorry, rather Scryfall 17. And let me tell you,
they're all sweet.
It's wild. That Door to Nothingness is sweet art. I'm pretty sure most of these, except for like the bulk rare shit from like Mirrodin and the Commons, have been reprinted without his art. But like Nightmare Lash, that looks rad. It's cool.
You know what? I'm kind of down for that Swamp.
I thought you'd like that.
Metal Man.
It is totally Metal Man. It's only online. Or wait, is it online? I don't know.
So here's the thing, Puddinhead, if you're listening, which you're not, so Collective, go hit them up on Twitter. You need to start a Kickstarter instead of Seb McKinnon to get your playmats made, because I would get a Door to Nothingness playmat, and probably, oh gosh, I mean, just because it looks cool, Temporal Cascade is kind of neat.
That Swamp artwork is pretty rad too.
Oh god, Unholy Strength is real hardcore. God, I just like them all. Okay.
I just hope he's not dead. That'd be sad.
All right. So Grave Pact, we agree. Slam dunk. And you know what? And the funny thing is, Tuck, I'm surprised you didn't push back more on that, just because I know that is a little bit of a degen card. And so I'm surprised you're not like, boo, screw that. I'm surprised you're like, okay. I think you know what it is. Here's what I'm dissecting with you. You know the deck's not very strong as is, so I think adding in a degen card that doesn't break it, you're like, okay, he needs a little bit of help. That's kind of what I'm doing, reading between the lenses. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think... Oh, hey. We have a Wild Scree join us. I think... So, yeah, Grave Pact to me is not a card that... It's a card that is broken but cannot be broken itself.
Oh, gotcha.
If you don't have creatures on your battlefield, this card might as well just be flavor text, right?
Sure.
So I think there's certain decks that I own that abuse that, right? And there's certain decks that I played against that I hate that also abuse that, right?
Yeah.
But I can't fault you putting this into a deck that needs this sort of value, right? And as I made mention previously, I don't feel like you have enough things with the sacrifice, enough effects out of that. Sure. And that's why it makes sense. So I was kind of shocked does not see it in it.
You know what? And I guess if I wanted to make it sweatier, I would do Butcher of Malakir instead of Grave Pact, because that's a one-time use. Yep. And you can encore it, but when you encore it, that means everyone's sacking 9 creatures, which is real gross.
Yeah, that's really good.
Tuck, round out the episode. All right. What are you cutting and what are you adding?
As we mentioned, we need ways to do things. We need stuff to do with these things. Witch's Oven, au revoir.
Oh, come on. It's a sack outlet.
You can use it once a turn. One colorless.
It makes food.
Witch's Oven is a one color. Oh, excuse me. Which is colorless is one drop artifact. It's uncommon from the worst set ever printed, Throne of Eldraine. The winged smells are both scrumptious and suspicious. A little Yoda there for you. So tap. This is the issue, Mr. Combo. Tap, sack a creature. If it was just sack a creature, fine, leave it. Tap, sack a creature, create a food token.
It would be too good.
Sack. Yes, I agree. So tap, sack a creature, create a food token. If the sacrificed creature's toughness was 4 or greater, create two food tokens instead.
Food tokens.
And you can pay 2, tap them, sack, and gain 3 life. What value? So there's a lot of these free sack outlet artifacts, and I think the one that I think that you would like the most out of here.
You're forgetting something. There's flavor text.
I read it.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah, I read it first.
Sorry, it's that 7% turbo shady.
Yeah, I just.
Oh my god, you actually drank beer?
I just blacked out. He's been drinking beer for like the last month. So anyways, okay, so there's a lot of these free sack outlets, and I think that this one in particular, some people would say like Ashnod's Altar, right? But the problem is you don't really need the mana, and you're not creating a bunch of stuff to store up to sack for later, right? Okay. So in my opinion, Spawning Pit is the one that you might be looking for.
I thought you were going Altar of Dementia.
No. It's too, like, this card, it protects you, which I'll get to in just a second. So 2 colorless for an artifact. It's from Darksteel originally. Sack a creature, put a charge counter on Spawning Pit. Pay 1, remove 2 charge counters from Spawning Pit. Create a 2/2 colorless spawn artifact creature token. So for me, this card is very similar in scope to Grave Titan, where you're going to get the value out of things leaving the battlefield, right? So as we talked about earlier, there are times in the early game where you're going to be encoring stuff just to go through your deck, just to kind of get some value, do some filtering, kind of set up for your later turns. And this card, because it costs so little, you can get it out early, and it's also it's one of those things where people, if you play an Ashnod's, like, this is a combo deck, we have to kill Ashnod's, right? If you play Phyrexian Arena, Altar Dimension, all that stuff, it's much scarier. This one reads a lot less frightening. But having this out will let you start building up and generating an army of defenders and maybe attackers after a board wipe, after that sort of thing. Like I said, all the other ones are just kind of one shots, and it just doesn't fit into the deck. But this kind of lets you kind of build your own end game, build your own mid-range game. You don't have to do it on your turn. You can do it in response to attackers. If you're going to swing out the next turn, you can do it at the beginning of the person to your right's end step. I just think that of all the free sack outlets, this one will get you the most bang for the buck.
Yeah, that's fair. I was hoping to have a place for Witch's Oven, finally. You actually make food tokens relevant, but I will say this. It's what are they? It's like the baker's half dozen.
Six of one, half a dozen of the other.
There we go.
I like the baker's half dozen actually, like 6.5.
Trade 2 creatures for a 2/2 colorless spawn artifact creature token, or do you want to trade a creature for 3 life or 6 life? I mean, it's all kind of whatever. I think what would probably help me figure out the value of Spawning Pit in this deck is playing it in our play group, but I've seen more flyers in our play group. And so I'm almost wondering if there's some sort of free sack outlet that I could leverage, like a Goblin Bombardment or something like that in these colors, to where I could still get the value, but then maybe I can deal with the stuff that I can't deal with stuff on the ground.
Some flyers or something along those lines, sure. I can see that.
But I do agree with the statement of I should probably have a sack outlet that doesn't tap, and I can use it more than once.
Gotta agree with you there.
So with that depressing thing of me agreeing with Doug, thanks for making it until the end, and I'm quitting the podcast.
I was gonna say it's true. It is truly the darkest hour.
As details, here's some information about our giveaway from level 1. We're actually going to be giving away a bunch of borderless planeswalkers, which is pretty cool. We're giving away a Narset of the Ancient One, the Royal Scions, Ashiok Nightmare Muse, Luca Coppercoat Outcast, and Nissa Shadowed Bows. plus a CMD Tower playmat and sleeves. To enter, it's super simple. Just promote the content we put out. We will announce the winner on MTG Action 4 News March 2nd and social media soon after. And yes, we'll be doing these giveaways every single month. It could be a sweet set of cards like this. It could be a custom deck the team puts together. It just depends on what level 1 can hook us up with. But we would love 5-star reviews. Hit that subscribe button, whether you're on YouTube or listening to us on a podcast, because the more we can grow the collective, the more that we can infect your minds. I'm just kidding. We just want to be friends. Also, just kidding. I want to infect you.
I'm so lonely.
If you would like to get a hold of the cast and figure out how to enter into the contest, here's how you could do that. Andy, are you recording?
Yes.
Okay. You can reach me at Mr. Commodore 5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. Big Tuck, where can they reach? Yeah.
I actually messaged a few people on Twitter today, so that was exciting. And by one, I mean Mr. Bevers, but I'm still on Twitter at Big Tuck Tweeting.
God damn it, you just gave away who our guest was. You son of a bitch.
Edit that out. Redacted. It's redacted.
Redacted. You can reach our main account at CMD Tower on Twitter as well. You can go to our website where we will have the deck list posted, cmdtower.com/BNBE79. Basically, type in Court of Ambition, which I'm surprised you didn't talk about. Mana Drain, not surprised you didn't talk about. Deranged Assistant, Tower.com. Squee McGee, if people want to find out how to get a hold of your Manolith commentary and find out your thoughts that you have on the episode that you weren't able to listen to live, how would they do that?
Oh, welcome. This is Wild Squee popping in at the end of the episode here. No big deal. I have no idea what they talked about, but I'm sure it was fun. I'm glad y'all enjoyed the episode. You can find me at Dear Squee at cmdtower.com. That's it. It's simple, straightforward.
He can handle all of your audio needs and does have a full studio if you are ever in the KC metro area. Just remember, mask required, Pokeballs optional, because he is wild and you probably won't catch him.
Ooh, like it. Yeah, like that.
That thing's going to shake a couple times. I'm going to pop right out of there.
She said the same thing about the condom. If you want to support more ways in our sponsor.
Oh my God.
Stuff, head over to level1gameshop.com. And when you place an order in the order notes, just type in CMD Tower so they know that you came from
Nice.
Outside of their own storefront, they do have a TCG store, so if you like to purchase stuff that way, you can totally do that. They sell dice, playmats, everything that you need from a board game perspective. Seriously, help them, because that helps you get more free shit. Another way you can actually support us by putting dollars in the pocket so we can upgrade equipment and give you guys more giveaways is go to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have all the different tiers. Trust me, we do not make money. We absolutely lose money. So don't support the Command Zone. Support the CMD Tower.
Yeah.
They don't need it. They got Watsy's paycheck. We need the money more than they do.
Exactly. Guys is vaping left, right, and center.
They're on salary with benefits and all that bull.
I'm down here in my basement recording, wearing some slides. My toes are freezing off. It's like 10 degrees in Kansas City.
I'm sitting across from only $15,000 of Magic cards. I'm on the streets.
It's more like $2,000. No big deal.
No biggie.
And plus, you get additional entries into the monthly giveaways by being part of our patron community. But hey, if you can't afford a monthly commitment, but you do want to get some swag and support us what you can head over to our store, cmdtower.com/merch. We do sell our playmats, our coins, our reminder tokens, everything on there. I know once we get Tuck's equipment upgraded when he moves away here coming up in the next couple months, we're going to start brewing the next ideas for our new patron stuff. So if you don't do the monthly stuff, you'll be able to buy it in the store. And of course, Pink Royal, thanks for the music provided in the beginning and the end. And guys, make sure you go support at T.Coates. He does the YouTube stuff that I don't want to. We appreciate it. He blesses his arse. And you should definitely go hook him up with projects and, ideas. So Big Tuck.
Also, shameless plug, Squeacoin. Go grab it. It's worth at least $5 a coin. No big deal. Order them. They're going to be
just think of the value
within 2 years. The value's over the moon. It's over the moon value.
But clearly, it's not the value of Gaia's Cradle that's gone up 300% in 14 months. So Big Tuck, Araumi's just really into composting. How do you feel? You've heard about this deck. You played it in the boxing league. This is kind of the boxing league minus like 15 cards. do you think we were able to create some blends to help this thing grow?
Yes, I think we added a lot of nutrients. I think we added a lot of manure to the compost in a good way. I think it's just a really cool ability. It's kind of funny that they gave the rares and the uncommons in the set these kind of cool deals, right? Yeah. And the big splashy mythics are just more kind of like generic filler ones. Looking at you, Shakashima, and Aurelia to some extent, or whatever the angel one is. So yeah, I think that yes. I think that in playing this, you're really gonna find the groove, because I feel like with the Commander Legends, you kind of start at like full arm spread, right? And you kind of got it down to here. And I think in playing it and putting in these swaps that we talked about, especially like the slam dunk ones, like the Grave Titans of the World, and whatever I said, all three of mine that were all great, Agent of Treachery. But just kind of putting these things in and kind of not losing the spirit of the deck, but kind of making it a little more coherent, a little easier. I think this deck is going to be something that will be really fun to bring out and kind of wow people with.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just going to have to be one of these decks that, we always talk about the personas at the play table, and I'm usually always the number one enemy. And I'm going to have to play this deck enough, and I'm going to have to take the lumps and bruises to where people can see it enough and be like, he can do some cool things with it, but he's literally a non-factor with his 3 counter spells and a couple game-winning cards, and that's it. So I think I'm going to have to put in the time. I'm going to have to put in the commitment. I'm going to have to take the L's to finally be able to see what the deck can do. And it's somewhat similar to what Sir Nathan went through with his Gin deck, his Mardu enchantments. We played, we talked about it in 40 Life and a Dash earlier in the week, and he made the comment at the end, this is the first game I've been able to play with it where I actually got to saw the deck do its thing. And I think that's something to be said, because we all recognize Sir Nathan's a good Magic player. He doesn't build bad decks. He wants to win games. And so you just immediately target him out the gate. And I think that Mardu enchantment deck is kind of like this Dimir Encore deck, where it's probably fine, but it's not like powerful. It can't deal with a 2v1 or a 3v1. It needs to kind of be under the radar and do the art of the steal. Yes. And not so much the art of the Devil.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. So yeah, I'm excited to see this out in the wild and be regaled by many a tale from it.
Well, I'm ready to get the art out of heal. Hell here.